Marriage counselor seems to be sabotaging my marriage with my husband. My husband, 31M, of 7 months, and I, 27F, had a rough time after we got married when he came back from military deployment. Screaming matches, erectile dysfunction, resentment from deployment, me feeling unattractive, etc. We went to a military-funded marriage counselor for about 2 months before the therapist suddenly disappeared, saying he was getting transferred. Said he'd continue seeing us once a week, but suddenly his phone number changed and we had no idea what happened. We just stopped counseling altogether due to scheduling issues. Our last session was around February or so. I thought the marriage counseling helped as we'd be doing better, or so I thought, but apparently my husband is still unhappy, albeit for other reasons now. Our intimacy in our life still sucks, and I feel horribly unwanted and undesirable despite being fit and attractive. We had a fight last night and finally the substance of our individual counseling came out for the first time. We were shocked to say the least. So we did both individual and couples counseling. We'd meet around once a week as a couple and would alternate weeks individually. It came out last night. The counselor had been telling us individually that the problem was all the other's fault. He gave us both some of the same story but with some differences. He told us each that the other was being very closed off and defensive, and not wanting to open up or discuss issues. That we were each blaming the other. This was while I was openly sharing with him my abandonment and anger issues and feeling insecure physically, and providing him with background info from my previous therapy sessions with other counselors. My husband claims he would try to offer stories from his past as well, but that the counselor would actually cut him off and say he wasn't the problem. He told my husband privately I may have bipolar disorder and likely needed treatment. This coincides chronologically with my husband out of nowhere yelling at me during arguments that I needed medication. I asked our counselor if I should see a specialist after these fights, whether I really was showing these signs, and said honestly that I would see more intensive help if he thought it would help our marriage. He laughed at my husband in individual sessions, saying there was nothing wrong with me, that my husband was deflecting by trying to diagnose me. Does he think he's a psychiatrist? He would laugh. He told me privately my husband was emotionally underdeveloped and would never have a healthy relationship with anyone without serious change. That I should move on. That he was not willing to change or admit to any issues and would run from all conflict. That each time the counselor tried to broach issues, my husband would clam up and get defensive. That he didn't know what it truly meant to be married and that he suspected there was something deeply rooted in my husband's past that was the root of all our problems. That my husband just needed more therapy. Note, we weren't paying for therapy. We got it free due to military benefits. He told me I was very smart and attractive and deserved a partner more on my level. My husband reports the counselor told him there was nothing wrong with him, that he was very mature and intelligent and all our problems stemmed from my psychosis. The aftermath, I am horrified by how many of our fights after the beginning of counseling were colored by his statements. I was treating my husband like a 13-year-old boy and my husband kept telling me I needed psychiatric treatment. Our marriage has actually improved much after this time, but I now believe it's because I worked on my anger issues and gave my husband the benefit of the doubt, while my husband became a better communicator in arguments. My husband now has different issues with our marriage, but we are both still reeling from our conversation about the counselor last night and wondering what kind of harm it may have caused. I don't really know what I'm asking here. I had insomnia all night about this, and I just don't know what to do. Update. So this is an update more than 3 years later? A lot happened since then, and it occurred to me that maybe I should post an update in case anyone here was around for that. Summary: I was the wife who was seeing a marriage counselor with my husband, both jointly and individually. Things were only getting worse and worse, and it was only after a blow-up fight that my husband and I compared notes and realized the counselor had been feeding each of us lies. Counselor was telling me that my husband was emotionally 12 years old and would never be capable of a relationship, while reassuring my husband all was well with him. Meanwhile, he was telling my husband I had borderline personality disorder and needed medication. When my husband started accusing me of being mentally ill, I brought this up to the counselor, who then began making fun of my husband for saying such a thing. Does he think he's a psychiatrist or something? He actually laughed. Counselor reassured me that I was a beautiful and intelligent woman and would do great once I left my husband. The counselor, who was provided by the military through their family services, ended up being transferred a few weeks after we discovered this. We couldn't figure out if he got canned for abusing some other couple, if he retired, or some other shenanigan. Well, fast forward to today. My husband and I are doing great now. We went on a vacation, both of us changed jobs, moved, and we are very happily married now 4 years later. We travel, adopted a couple of kitties, and bought a house in a place we both love. How we got here: we both read some self-help books. Started giving each other the benefit of the doubt. Got better at communicating. I left my super high-stress job, he changed careers, and everything sort of did a 180. Funny enough, my old job had been tiring me, and when I'd mentioned to counselor that I thought maybe I should find another job, since it was so dysfunctional, he protested against it. My husband and I did not report him at the time. We were concerned he would retaliate against my husband in some way, as my husband was in the armed forces for a year and a half after all this. I am embarrassed that we did not report him. We were scared and overwhelmed. I am considering calling that base's family services now and filing an official report. Not sure if it'll matter, so much time has passed. That's all really. You all were such a great help then. I thought I might as well post this in case anyone around here remembered.